of our lives we have heroes. People we look up to, people we admire, people we respect, people we have a sense of awe as we consider them. And maybe as we meet them, or maybe as we just watch them from afar, we admire and respect all that they're able to do through whatever sphere that they have influence in. Maybe it's the things that they say, maybe it's some pioneering work that they do, maybe it's some faithfulness that they show over a long term. Maybe your heroes are people who you will never meet. Maybe they're historical, or maybe they live a long way away, or maybe they operate on a different level to you and I. Maybe you find heroes in the people around you, in your family. Maybe you know people who are heroes because of incredible things they've done, or just everyday things that they do on a consistent basis. When I was a kid, I don't have a middle name, and I wanted to insert the name Brian into my name. I wanted to be Paul Brian Oxley, because Brian Robson, well, he was my hero. He played in midfield like nobody else could. Robin Hood was also a hero because he seemed to redistribute wealth in a good way. My PE teacher Richard was also my hero because he just made everything fun, and he invited everybody in, and he could communicate about something which not everybody liked in a way that made everybody able to like it. My dad was a hero of mine. My mate Alex is a hero of mine because he just has a milkshake whenever we go out. Because why would you not have a milkshake? You can get a Coke at home or a beer at home. You can't make milkshakes like that at home. Maybe you have a hero in somebody like Malala, who stands up towards Islamic oppression and fights at incredible cost for justice to be done around the world. Maybe you have a hero in just an old person on your street who has for the last 50 years gone every Thursday to a local school and listened to children read. Maybe you're one of the ladies that knits those little hats that go onto the top of innocent smoothie bottles and raises money for good causes. There are a whole bunch of heroes in our lives, and these heroes affect us and influence us, and oftentimes carve out a path that we would choose, if we could, to follow. And the Bible, not surprisingly, is full of heroes. Well, it's full of characters at least, and often their stories are told in a heroic way. Maybe it's somebody like King David, who before he's king, and when he's king he's going to be heroic in a whole load of battles, but before he's even king, just as a young teenager, he's able to face down a giant so scared of the rest of the army that they won't go into battle. But David, the shepherd boy, well, he'll do it because he's brave enough and foolish enough and has enough faith in God to believe that God will protect him, and so he goes into battle, and it's heroic and wonderful. Maybe it's Queen Esther, who stands up at incredible peril to herself and her own safety. She stands up and asks for the protection and the blessing of her people, her ethnic group, in the face of a quite crazy king. These people whose stories get told on a regular basis as being heroes of the faith that we get to observe. But of course, one of the things I love about the Bible is it's true to life, and it doesn't just paint these people as heroes who only did anything good. David, who was so single-minded that he didn't listen to anybody else, all the doubting voices in his own mind that said that this giant might beat him in battle, well, that was a good thing in that moment that he was so stubborn. But later on in life, when he would have surely had voices that questioned whether he was doing the right thing, and some kind of internal monologue that told him, hold on, don't do this, he managed to ignore those same voices again and take Bathsheba as his own and treat her as an object rather than love her as the wife of one of his best friends. Heroes can be people who have influence and choose to use that influence for good or for bad. Sometimes I become trapped in following somebody who's just charismatic, and I don't have the wherewithal to look at their character underneath. I can think of leaders that I've followed and that I've given time and energy to, who I've thought were good people, who I have invested everything I have in their bucket, and it turns out that I was just invested in a charisma rather than in a character. You might see that on the streets around you, where there are gangs of youths and there's a charismatic leader who's a hero to everybody in that group, but they're not using it for good. Because remember, we might be formed, but we also have the opportunity to form everything that's around us. There's this verse written to the early church, and the encouragement is this: to consider the great cloud of witnesses that surround you. What the author means, what the writer of this letter means, is take a moment, pause for a second, and consider all the heroic influences that are upon your life. Good and bad, dead and alive, near and far. Consider who it is that you think of as a hero. Consider what influence it is that they have upon you. It might be a boss, it might be a parent, it might be somebody from a far off land, it might be an historical figure who you've read 28 biographies of, but consider them. Think about the good that they've imparted into your life. Consider also the bad, their shadow side that maybe you haven't noticed yet, or maybe also too you've allowed to seep into you. I know I picked up bad habits from people who I've allowed to be heroes in the past. And so in our car share this week, when next time you have a conversation, ask each other some of the following things. Have you got heroes? Have you got a great cloud of witnesses that surround you? Have you got people who are ahead of you in your journey of generosity, of joy, in parenting, in marriage, in singleness? Have you got people who are ahead of you in some way who you look up to and think, I want to be like them? Maybe if you can, it might be a great opportunity to thank them. Maybe you need to, in that conversation, consider how it is that they've formed you, to check, is that good? To check, is it under control? Maybe it would be a good thing to consider, how are you a hero to and an influence upon others? If somebody else was to consider their great cloud of witnesses, would you be involved in that great cloud? Would you be somebody that they're thankful for? Would you be somebody who's known by a whole bunch of people in their clouds for investing in them and championing their cause and for loving them and being generous and encouraging towards them? Would anybody else have you in their great cloud of witnesses, or not? Is there a way in which you've been influenced by somebody? If I think about me, I know that a lot of my journey for the last decade and a half has been undoing some of the influence that other leaders had on me. Unlearning some of the things I'd learned under their tutelage. Unlearning some of the ways and mannerisms and language and beliefs that were given to me and that I took on my shoulders and believed were my own. I've had to unlearn them. And I have to walk that tricky tightrope of giving thanks for the good influence that they had and removing myself from the bad, because I don't want to be formed in that way. I want to form others in ways of goodness and grace and holistic blessing. So as you consider your great cloud of witnesses, as you consider the people around you and ahead of you for whom you want to give thanks, as you notice aspects of your own character that you think, oh, that influence is from somebody else and I wish it wasn't true of me. As you position yourself to be of influence, because you are, whether you like it or not, in somebody else's great cloud, may you discover the courage to be an influence of good. May you be a hero to 1,000 people who, because of your deliberate actions, they are inspired towards goodness and truth and kindness and hospitality and grace. May you know more people who lead you and guide you and influence you in good ways. May you have the ability to spot quickly what's charisma and what's character and Christ-likeness. And may you be blessed throughout all these conversations.